Today, we're diving into the harsh reality about what's really going on between men and women, and why so many women are struggling to be in their feminine and therefore feel disconnected from themselves, from love, from softness, from their bodies, and also why nothing seems to change, no matter how much healing work that you think you've done. I also won't pretend as if this isn't going to ruffle some feathers, because it definitely will trigger some of you people, especially in a society where the truth is always being diluted, roles are reversed, and we're all being taught to reject what's actually natural, what's essential, and what's actually primal. So let's get into it. First, there are two genders, not three, not 9 3/4, two: men and women. Same with the realm of energetics, right? There's only two, masculine and feminine. And these two energies, these two forces, they were specifically designed to complement each other, which is the complete opposite of what society conditions us to do, right? We're not meant to compete or to outshine each other, but to coexist in harmony. We're meant to be harmonic. And you can see that all throughout nature, right? Let's take the sun and the moon, day and night, yin and yang, ebb and flow, and so on, good and bad. There's so many. It's everywhere. Now, the masculine, when it's in its healthy embodied form, protects, it provides, it leads, it gives structure, it creates stability, it moves forward with purpose and presence. While the feminine, in her essence, receives and softens and nurtures. She creates as well, but not from force, she creates from magnetism. She knows things without knowing how she knows, right? That's intuition. And she moves with that intuition while the masculine moves with logic. So she turns space into home, she turns life into beauty, and so on. Both genders are fundamentally different, not just biologically, but also energetically, emotionally, spiritually. And that's not something that we're meant to fix. That's not something we have to add multiple ones on top of that. That's not some outdated belief that some white man created hundreds and thousands of years ago. That's the design. That's the masterpiece, right? It's natural. But right now, we're living in a time where that masterpiece is really being torn apart by competition and confusion and pain. Men are being told that they are too much. Women are being told that they are not enough unless they are doing everything on their own, right? So what we're doing is we're abandoning our very nature and wondering why we feel so lost. Makes sense, right? You see it everywhere, the battle of the sexes. Men are scared to lead. Women are scared to let go. Everyone is blaming each other, pointing fingers of why our world is so messed up. And at the core of all of this chaos, wounded ego, unprocessed trauma, and a complete disconnection from truth and from our core. Let's call it what it is. Every time someone gets triggered by a statement like, men and women are not the same, that's not expansion, that's ego. That's yet another unhealed wound of yours screaming for control. And the louder the ego gets, the deeper the wound underneath actually is. Because the ego is only trying to protect you, right? It's not a bad thing. It is its job. It steps in when something feels unsafe, when a part of you is hurting, or when a belief you hold is about to be exposed as false. And instead of owning the pain, the ego wants to blame and defend and reject and react, and that's where it becomes toxic. But the dangerous part is every time you let the ego take over, every time that you deny the truth of what you feel, every time that you choose defensiveness instead of self-honesty, you reinforce the wound, you keep that pain alive, and you just remain in that cycle, you remain in that loop. And what is the cycle? Trigger, reaction, protection, denial, repeat it all again. So many women today are stuck in this cycle, not because they're weak, but because they are exhausted, because they've had to become their own protectors, their own providers, because they were taught that if you don't do it yourself, nobody will. You can't rely on men. Men are trash. We choose the bear over the man because men are dangerous. And that, where does it come from? From survival. And where does survival come from? Well, let's look back in time, because as much as it exists right now, it came from somewhere earlier on. So, for most of history, women could not survive without a man. That's not emotional dependency, that's unfortunately the literal reality. Women were not safe alone. Without a man, you were exposed, you were vulnerable, you were at risk. Without a man, anything could happen. Danger lived everywhere around, right? And that fear lived in our bloodline. It's what shaped our mothers and their mothers and their mothers and their mothers and so on. So we carry it in our nervous system, in our beliefs, and our way that we live life, and in the way that we approach love. So we learned that men are both the protector and the threat. So we want him to hold us, but we don't trust him. We want to be soft, but we're afraid to be seen as weak, as man needy. We want to surrender on one side, but we've never been taught how to do that safely. Because of disappointment, because of internalized conditionings. And that internal contradiction, that's where so many women are stuck. So they want love, but reject what it takes to receive it. They want to be feminine, but they're conditioned to be in control and to be independent. And they want the man to lead, but they always take the lead first, just in case, right? So he cannot mess up. And let's be real, we've been through a lot through our lives. Many of us, if not most of us, were let down by the masculine, whether that was through abandonment, betrayal, abuse, cheating, or simply not being protected the way we needed to be, whatever form it showed up for you. So we toughened up. We took cover. We decided, never again. We decided, I don't need a man. I'll do it by myself. Life without a man is more peaceful. And on one hand, yes, that's power. I actually think you don't need a man for everything. Women should be independent to some degree. But on the other hand, it became too extreme, meaning it became a shield you now don't know how to put down anymore. So you confuse independence with rejection. You confuse control with safety. You confuse guardedness with strength. But true feminine power doesn't come from how well you can do it all on your own. We already know you can. You proved it to yourself many, many times. It also doesn't come from how independent you can be. Again, you proved it to yourself many, many times. We know. It comes from how deeply you can trust yourself, trust life, trust your intuition, trust your discernment to know when it's safe to let go and to let love in. Many confuse this with weakness nowadays and the type of narrative that states, I need a man to come and save me at some point in time, just like they do in fairy tales. But that's not what it means. It simply means that you find the balance of your femininity in order to be able to come together with the masculine in harmony. And yes, this wounding also often starts young. Your beliefs about men, about relationships, about how love works, they didn't come out of nowhere. They didn't just drop from the sky. They were shaped over the course of our whole lives, of your whole lives. But it had to start somewhere, right? So what's the root of them? Well, the beliefs were shaped by the very first masculine energy that you ever knew. Your fathers, your grandfathers, your brothers, the male teachers that you had, other male authority figures that you followed, the unspoken dynamics that you witnessed in your childhood. And whether they were present or absent, safe or dangerous, supportive or passive, those patterns imprinted deeply within you. And now you project them, you date them, you expect them, and you don't even realize you're doing it. So what now? You start by taking your power back, not by rejecting men, not by saying all men are trash or all men are evil and conditioning yourself to believe that there are no good men out there, but by healing the part of you that still believes that they are the enemy. Not by killing your ego, but by softening it, by taking back control over it. Also, not by staying guarded, but by becoming deeply self aware so that you can let go. Not by being strong in the way that you've been taught, but simply by becoming more rooted and grounded and regulated and safe within yourself so that you are able to lead yourself with both softness and strength. So, masculine, feminine, and masculine. Because the truth, whether you want to hear it or not, we're not meant to do it all alone. We're not meant to carry everything. We are not here to outman the man. We're not here to abandon the men and hate them forever. That's not what nature had in mind. We're here to return to our feminine safely, consciously, powerfully, and to call in the masculine from that place. That is when you attract the right men. That is when you are safe. That is when you are at home. That's where polarity lives. That's where love lives, unconditional love. That's where we come back to who we really are. That's where you come home to yourself.